It was an all-around great day to be a pass catcher in the Louisville offense on Saturday against Austin Peay, but two players stepped up in particular in the midst of Caullin Lacy's absence. We'll identify who those two players are on today's episode of Locked On Louisville.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on, everyone? Happy Labor Day. Welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I want to personally take this time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, as always, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your first order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with any other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. As I mentioned, it was a great day to be a pass catcher in the Louisville offense on Saturday in the 62-0 win over Austin Peay. Two players in particular, JaCorey Brooks, Jadon Thompson, stepped up the most in the midst of Caullin Lacy's absence. Also on the docket for today, tight end will be a key strength for the Cardinals offense in 2024, and then we'll conclude the show with a weekly mailbag segment. So continuing to recap the 62-0 shutout victory for the Louisville Cardinals in the season opener against Austin Peay on Saturday. If you remember on the first recap episode of the show, we dove into Tyler Shought's incredible debut, the running back committee really showing out, the young running backs, Isaac Brown, Kewan Brown, Duke Watson doing most of the work, and then the defense was, nothing short of fantastic. A shutout, didn't give up barely over 100 yards total offense, and then had multiple sacks, multiple tackles for loss. But I definitely wanted to make it a point of emphasis to discuss the receivers as well, because if you remember before this game leading up to it, that was one of the positions that we sort of were looking for, because with no Caullin Lacy, he's going to miss an extended period of time due to that broken collarbone he sustained in a scrimmage a couple weeks ago. We wanted to see who was going to step up in his absence. And I felt like it was going to be sort of a multi-tiered discussion. Like you were going to have, obviously, JaCorey Brooks and Chris Bell be relied upon even more. But also you were looking for some other guys to step up. There was a group of about 5 to 6 different players that I'm like, okay, someone or multiple players from this group, they have to take that step forward because this offense needs it. And the players that stepped up on Saturday were JaCorey Brooks and Jadon Thompson. Now, again, we'll reiterate that the level of competition wasn't the greatest. This was a game that Louisville was supposed to win. If you look at the spread, anywhere from 35 to 40 points. So by all means, this was supposed to be and ended up being a blowout victory in favor of the hometown Cardinals. But still, case in point, you still need to handle business. So a team showing out against a mid-major FBS or an FCS team in this case, it's a whole lot better than them not showing up at all. Like I would rather be talking about, how significant is it? Because all he did was do that against Austin Peay. That's a whole lot better of a discussion to have versus, this guy really didn't look all that great. He wasn't able to create much separation. Overall, it was a great day to be a pass catcher. 15 different players caught a pass on Saturday from either Tyler Shought, Harrison Bailey, or Pierce Clarkson. The leader was JaCorey Brooks. He had 7 for 83 and a touchdown, pretty much all of his production coming in the first half. And it was shown right away. He was Tyler Shought's go-to receiver on the first couple drives of the game. He had no issue creating separation, caught a very solid pass in the end zone to where I won't say the ball was underthrown, but it wasn't necessarily a wide open pass either. Like Brooks still had to beat the defender one-on-one and go up to sort of high point the football a tad bit. And he did just that. And it was a situation where Brooks made things look so effortless. Not really much of a deep ball factor. Louisville really didn't throw the ball that deep all game. They took what the defense was giving them and just sort of moved down the field with ease offensively. It's almost like the guy who led Alabama in receiving touchdowns in 2022 was having his way against an FCS defense. That's completely a complete shocking revelation, I know. But it just goes to show that injuries were the reason that Brooks didn't see a lot of the field at Alabama last year. If he's healthy, he's going to be one of the more talented wide receivers in the ACC. He is that good. He's always been that good. It's just a matter of recency bias just ultimately taking its toll on the discussion and the perception of how good JaCorey is. But ultimately, we saw just how good he was. I look for him to do sort of the same exact thing against Jacksonville State. But the creating separation, the pretty stout routes, like he was really good at running the routes. The footwork was there. They were just sharp routes. I mean, overall, not really much to discuss other than he was essentially unguardable. Like one-on-one, no one was touching JaCorey Brooks on Saturday, and that's a really good sign to have. It's good foreshadowing for things to come, is that, okay, he's looking essentially unguardable against Austin Peay. That bodes well for the weeks in the future. So really solid to see JaCorey Brooks do really well in his debut in a Louisville uniform, led the Cardinals in receptions, receiving yards, and then had one receiving touchdown. But the player that I was really excited to see what he did was Jadon Thompson. Thompson spent the majority of last season dealing with an injury. It affected his explosiveness. It affected his route running. Like, I know everyone looks at that Virginia Tech touchdown he scored last year and it's like, dude, just get into the end zone, because it felt like it took forever to watch that play unfold. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why does this look weird watching it? And then hearing after the season, well, Thompson dealt the majority of the season with an injury, which wasn't really known by the media and the fan base. I'm like, that makes perfect sense, because watching him on the field at Cincinnati, watching him on the field at Louisville, it was like, what's going on here? Like, maybe the level of competition is better, but he just doesn't look as explosive. Well, now we understand why that was to be the case. Now you have a fully healthy Jadon Thompson, and he catches 3 passes for 44 yards and scores 2 touchdowns. That's the main thing for me, is him being able to find the end zone. He had 2 touchdowns in his first 4 seasons of college ball, and now he gets 2 in that opening game against Austin Peay. I know that the level of competition isn't there, but it is encouraging for the games to come, because it feels like Louisville needs someone else to be able to rise in the depth chart and on the field to be able to sort of mask over that Caullin Lacy absence for the time being. And even when Lacy comes back, you give Louisville a great 3rd or 4th option. So Thompson had that touchdown on the really solid throw from Tyler Shuck down the right sideline where he put it on the money. Thompson caught it in stride in the end zone. And then he had another touchdown in this game. I'm trying to go back, and it was definitely in the first half. And overall, just looked really solid on the routes as well. Didn't have any issue creating separation. Looked like that Cincinnati level of explosiveness that he had in 2022, where he was a top 5 pass catcher for the Bearcats. So those 2 guys were the players that stepped up the most in Caullin Lacy. I believe that this is probably going to be a week-to-week basis until the South Alabama transfer comes back. Like I said, I won't really worry about the lack of production from guys like Chris Bell, who only had 1 catch for 21 yards, or Antonio Meeks, who had 2 for 14. It was nice, however, to see Ahmari Huggins-Bruce catch a pass. He got some playing time in the second half of the game against Austin Peay. So really nice to see that. I ultimately think this is going to be a game-for-game basis on who's going to lead Louisville in receiving. I think that JaCorey Brooks will be sort of the security blanket to go to in the first part of the season, but I do think you're going to see more from Chris Bell. Hopefully you see Jadon Thompson be able to build upon that performance, and then Ahmari Huggins-Bruce when he gets acclimated into this. Don't forget also, no Jimmy Callaway in this game against Austin Peay. He was questionable coming in, and then a performance or a matchup to where you're supposed to win by 35 to 40 points. It's probably for the best that you're a little bit conservative, trying to make sure that he doesn't make an injury worse or play hurt. So we'll see about his status upcoming against Jacksonville State. 3:30 kickoff coming up on Saturday at Cardinal Stadium. But like I said, 15 different pass catchers featured in the Louisville offense that ended up making a reception. Some of those players were tight ends, and we saw right away how much of an upgrade this position went through from last year to this year. Tight end's going to be a major strength in 2024. We'll break it down and explain coming up on the next segment of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Today's title sponsor of the show is 5-Hour Energy. If you want to get in shape but you're having trouble staying motivated, make 5-Hour Energy shots part of your lifestyle and get the energy boost you need to get fit. We all know you sometimes don't want to go to the gym, so take a 5-Hour Energy shot to give you the feeling and alertness so you can get there and make the most out of your workout. For me, it's the zero sugar and the convenient portable size, so it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore: watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and much, much more. There's a flavor for everyone. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5, followed by ourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Again, this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders either. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and take advantage of the opportunity at hand. Cardinal fans, it's not too late. I know college football is already back, but you can catch up before the season gets too far into things. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. It doesn't matter. You can get it all from Locked On's stable of college experts by subscribing to the Locked On College Football podcast. Who has a chance to make the playoff? Recapping the first weekend of games, looking at the playoff landscape as a whole, etc. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as we continue into this special Monday, Labor Day episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast, the pass catchers, like I said, 15 players caught a pass on Saturday against Austin Peay. Not really that surprising of a trend. Multiple players played, and multiple players caught a pass. So will it be the same thing this week against Jacksonville State? I think it's going to be fairly close. But looking back before we start to preview that matchup, another aspect of this game that I think will get overlooked that shouldn't is tight end play. And I know that the stats don't really maybe support the hype, but I'm looking at this and I'm projecting for the season to come. Because last year, it took quite some time for tight ends to be featured in the offense. Like Joey Gatewood started to come on at the end of the season. Same with Nate Kariski. You really didn't see all that much from tight ends until the end of the season. And then right away, tight ends were featured in the offense. Now, I know that the numbers might not necessarily look the greatest. Like Mark Redmond had 1 catch for 21 yards and a touchdown. Jamari Johnson had 2 for 20. Isaiah Cummings, 1 for 5. Jewel Skinner, 1 for 4. But you look at the trend, and having 4 different players at the position catch a pass in a game that was pretty much dominated by running the football, and then also the chunk yardage passes downfield, to where it's not really so much about the statistics. It's what you saw on the field. For starters, I mean, I don't think it was the greatest, but it was seeing how they were involved in the passing game that offers the most encouragement. Because we know that from a Jeff Brohm offense, there is such an emphasis on the tight end position. Like, that is definitely a spot that you saw this offense lacking last year, to the point to where I'm not even comfortable like really analyzing year one of Jeff Brohm and Louisville's, program as being like sort of a true indication of what the offensive scheme is going to look like. I think it was more of an outlier because it didn't resemble any year or any consistent number of years in Jeff Brohm's head coaching tenure, whether it be at Western Kentucky, Purdue, you name it. You're going to see more of a Jeff Brohm offense where tight ends are extremely featured. I mean, Tyler Higbee, multiple other tight ends that end up going to the NFL. Seeing Mark Redmond catch that touchdown pass in the back of the end zone and being able to stretch the field. First of all, two things there. Number one, I'm not sure how many quarterbacks in college football can make that pass that we saw from Tyler Shough, but oh my goodness, the man threw a dart. It was fantastic to watch. And second, the concentration for Mark Redmond, not only to be able to catch that ball sort of on the back shoulder, but also have the composure and awareness to get that foot in bounds very quickly because it was very simultaneous. Shout out to the San Diego State transfer for making things happen. So him being able to stretch the floor was key to see. Also, again, statistics won't really back this up. The box score, if you look at it, you're like, not that great. But Ahmari Johnson also was given the ball in space a couple times, had 2 catches, so the sample size was small. But there was a clear couple plays that it was designed to get him the football. And you did that. In one play, he was a check down, and Shough utilized that and got him the football. And the other one, it seemed like it was a design play to put the ball in his hands. And for a driver of the Ahmari Johnson agenda here within the Louisville fan base, it was really nice to see because, as I mentioned, I think that Ahmari Johnson could be a player that could ultimately lead the Cardinals in receiving yards at tight end because the talent is there, and him taking off-season workouts really seriously and just improving his body that much more. And it's not hard to see why he can definitely be a key part in this offense in 2024. But it was nice to see Isaiah Cummings and Jaleel Skinner both catch passes in the second half. You never know when your number is going to be called. So not only do you have this position severely upgraded, but you've upgraded the depth as well. We'll see if we witness Dylan Mesman getting any run. I imagine Dwayne Martin's going to be utilized more of as a blocker for this team and moving forward. But ultimately, having 2 really good tight ends with Mark Redmond and Ahmari Johnson is key. And I think that this matchup with Austin Peay was just a sign of things to come. I imagine tight end will be more and more utilized, even when Caullin Lacy comes back, when Louisville really wants to stretch the field. Because let's face it, they didn't break out the entire playbook. They kept it pretty simple, part of because they could, and part of because you don't want to tip your hand too quickly. Like you're going to use the duration of the season to get the playbook unwinded, which that's pretty much how things go in college football. I mean, that's not anything new. But it felt like the offense was pretty simple. They took what the defense gave them. It was a lot of short to intermediate routes that you got the ball out to guys in space and let them utilize, getting upfield and extending drives. When Louisville starts to throw the ball more downfield, they let Tyler Shough air it out more. I think that's when you're going to see tight end utilized more and more as a security blanket on third down. As the chemistry and camaraderie continues to build on the field between Shough and these tight ends, I think that we're sort of at the tip of the iceberg at the moment. Like the snowball effect is going to be extremely real. And I'm excited. I'm really excited because tight end was a severe issue last year. And I thought that there was talent. Like Joey Gatewood was a good player. Nate Kariski is a good player. But it wasn't one of the better tight end rooms in the Power 5. Now it's going to be probably a top 5 tight end room in the conference. I don't think it is far-fetched to suggest that. So going to be another thing to focus on, not only in Jacksonville State, but also more importantly in the Georgia Tech game coming up here in just around 3 weeks. So we'll see what happens. I am excited to see the team back in action. It feels like this week is going to just drag as we get closer and closer to that game. But, the pass catching was fantastic. 15 different receivers caught a pass on Saturday, and a lot of them, or 4 of them, I should say, were tight ends. So on the final segment of the show, we are going to answer a couple questions, some in response to this game, others in response to some other sports that have been playing early on in the fall. We'll answer those questions coming up on the final segment of Locked On Louisville. Cardinal fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. That's Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you can step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your program to glory. From recruiting to hiring staff, overseeing training camps, and handling scholarships, you control every crucial detail of the program. And here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the matchups. Your strategies will not only determine the success of your team, but the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. Of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Louisville fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, that's in all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure you take advantage of this perk, as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com. ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Cardinal fans, thanks again for tuning in to this Labor Day exclusive show with the Locked On Louisville podcast. Once again, show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. We're in the final segment of the show, and that is dedicated to the weekly Monday Mailbag segment. A lot of great questions in response to this weekend and from some other sports. First question on the docket: with all of the games that you saw from the ACC, does your opinion change on who will be the biggest competition to contend for the ACC championship game? Very good question. By the time this recording is taking place, we'll not see what happens in Florida State, Boston College. I do want to see how Florida State bounces back against another conference opponent. But it's still just week one. If you're judging everything based upon week one, I think it's too small of a sample size. Like, I don't like what I saw from NC State. Virginia Tech was the biggest letdown. Miami was Miami. Clemson was non-competitive for the most part against Georgia. So, I mean, I think Clemson is still right there. Miami might be your top level of competition. They embarrassed Florida in the swamp. And then Virginia Tech, I mean, you lose at Vanderbilt, that's kind of tough. And then NC State was trailing Western Carolina going into the fourth quarter. So, to be determined. I don't think North Carolina and SMU are going to be as big of competition, but we'll just see kind of moving forward. Number two, you asked on Twitter, who was your MVP of the Louisville game against Austin Peay? What would your answer be? I think it's Tyler Shough. I mean, the quarterback usually always gets the glory, and I don't want to make that sort of a trend, but it is the case in this situation. He was fantastic in his Cardinals debut. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, didn't really force the issue all that much. High completion percentage, and he just seemed so comfortable in this Louisville offense. So I'm going to go with Tyler Shough with an honorable mention to freshman running back Isaac Brown, 5 carries over the century mark and getting that touchdown on the 77-yard breakoff run. Louisville volleyball 2-0, 2 ranked wins. Is this a team that can win it all? Yeah. It's gotten to the point now where anytime Danny Busboom Kelly is your head coach, you can win a national championship. What's key about this year and what can make this such a more memorable and remarkable season is that the Final Four is in the Ville. It's going to be at the KFC Yum Center out in December. So if Louisville can somehow get to the Final Four, you imagine that they're going to have some level of a home court advantage with the fan base going to definitely show out. But to be able to go down one set against Wisconsin and get the sort of reverse sweep after that was really nice to see. That was a tough match. And then Tennessee's a really, really tough team as well. So getting that sweep was fantastic. you don't really have much time to gloat over those victories because you have to go up to Happy Valley and play against Penn State, who I believe Penn State's ranked. I haven't looked at the rankings at the moment, but Penn State is almost always ranked. So brutal, absolutely brutal non-conference schedule. And I like this for a team that it's like if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best, and we're not going to duck the smoke from anyone. So shout out to the U of L volleyball team. Yes, they are 100% a national championship contender. So the AP Top 25 rankings have not come out for football just yet. Do you think the Cardinals end up in the top 25 rankings? Very good question. You look at what happened so far after week one. Texas A&M lost at number 20, and pretty much that's basically about it, if I'm not mistaken. Did Arizona won 61-39 over New Mexico. They're number 21. 22 was Kansas. They won. USC beat a ranked LSU team. NC State had a rough victory over Western Carolina. Iowa won big as well. So Louisville was the top receiving votes team. So if you think that A&M is going to drop out of the top 25 with the home loss to Notre Dame, it's going to be tough because I could see them falling like to 25. Maybe Louisville jumps over NC State due to the opening week game. I think, honestly, it's a 50-50 chance. Ultimately, I think that Louisville, put it this way, I've had the same take on this matter. I think that Louisville is ranked by the time they get to Georgia Tech. They'll play Jacksonville State this week, who got throttled by Coastal Carolina by 28 at home. You'll have a bye week on week 3, so you're likely going to be 2-0. At that point, if you're a team on the outside looking in, you're probably going to be ranked by the time that week 4 matchup. So it would be nice to have the Cardinals ranked currently, but ultimately, I mean, personally, I don't care. Just continue to win games. That's the way I'm looking. I know it's early. It's week 1 against an FCS opponent, but are you at the luxury to say that this team is better than last year? I mean, I honestly already think that they are. That was the narrative in the offseason as I went position by position. Like, running back is the only one that like maybe might have taken a step back. And you saw 3 young running backs tear up Austin Peay. Maurice Turner and Don Chaney really didn't even have to run the football at all. I think that this is a better team. I mean, you handle business against Austin Peay. So at this point, the conversation still be had. I think I think you can't really determine that until after the first half of the season, when you played Georgia Tech, when you've played Notre Dame, when you played SMU, and then at Virginia. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's just sort of in a wait and see approach. But that's going to wrap up the mailbag and thus wrap up this special Labor Day edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. We'll see you right back here tomorrow as we start to gravitate over into the Jacksonville State matchup. We'll preview the matchup with the Gamecocks, players to watch, X factors, keys to the game, and much, much more, with some potential for basketball recruiting talk as well. That is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Go Cards.